The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, and today we have Senator Kevin Avard for Wards 1, 2, and 5 here in Nashua.
Yep.
Kevin, how is it starting out with this crazy day here?
It's different. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of emotions, a lot of unsettled things that are going on in the air. Everything from the situation in Washington, D.C. to having to legislate via Zoom. It's different. It's not natural. It doesn't feel natural, and it's something that we're going to have to get used to. The positive side to the Zoom is the fact that the public will have a little bit more access.
Yeah.
Because everything will be publicized. It'll be on YouTube, and people can actually check in. Mm-hmm. So if there's any type of misgivings or misstatements by the media, people want to find out for themselves what was said, they can go and they can look at what's happening in a hearing.
Yeah. Well, your group's only 24 strong, but they do handle all the same legislation.
Right. So they choose the best to be in the 24.
You just have to 10 times more work. That's
a lot. Yeah, it is. Because we'll generate about 300 bills on the Senate side, and the House will generate up to 1,000. Right. Or close to that. And so everything that we funnel to them, they get a chance to mull over with their 24 people sitting at the seat looking at everything. Mm-hmm. And of course, their 1,000 bills comes, and we have to look at it with our 24 eyes and our assistants. So yeah, it's going to be different though. The Zoom is a different.
Different animal.
Completely different beast. But so there's a lot of things going on. The first 8 days in January are pretty interesting. So I know what's happening in Washington. We've had friends that support Trump that actually went down there. Some people from Hollis, some people from way out in Keene, just to go out there and support the president. And they're videotaping a lot of the things that are going on, and they're kind of scratching their heads because for the most part, they were saying about 99% of the people there were very, very peaceful. And they were singing, they were praying. And they saw busloads of white vans coming in, and people were videotaping that. And as soon as those white vans came in, people were escorted to the Capitol. And it was no sooner after that there's some type of rioting going on. Yeah. So a lot of people are questioning, where's the reporting on this? What's the truth? And I think that's the thing that everybody's really struggling with is, who's telling the truth?
Well, I think they're just going to find out. The first, just a few minutes ago, as I was driving here, they reported that the 3 groups, the Guard, the Capitol Police, and the Department of
Homeland Security?
I guess that was it. They all had gotten together before and didn't anticipate that crowd, which is hard to believe.
Right.
And that's why, some of those people that were there had no, they had their hands only. They had no protection, no tranche or whatever you want to call it.
They were just pushing back, or no wands, no shields,
in fact,
nothing.
They were using their hands, punching some people to get them to do something.
Which is indicating that, with every, this is a fact. When usually the Republicans and the conservatives go out and they protest or they march, they don't usually commit violence. So they didn't expect that.
But you don't know who's in that group.
Well, that's the problem. And one of the things that I find problematic with that is, whenever you're having any kind of march, anybody could pop in it and disguise themselves like you and disrupt. And one person act up, the whole crowd is
Oh, yeah.
labeled with that.
I'm sure they follow right along.
There has to be crowd discipline on, especially with the peaceful marches.
Right.
But we saw videotapes of the police escorting the people in. None of it's making sense. We're hearing one narrative, another narrative, and I think it's causing a lot of people on both sides of the aisle a lot of irritation.
Oh yeah.
Those on the left say, "Look at those nasty Republicans," and those on the right are saying, "My gosh, can't they tell the truth?"
Yeah.
And who are these people? And I think it's just more divide and conquer. It seems as though that we're becoming more divided, and you can't just point at the Republicans all the time and not.
Well, I think some people now are expecting some of that because of what's happened on the West Coast.
Right.
I mean, everything and other places, the police were not told not to do anything.
Right.
And it looked like they wanted to let the people do everything but get in. And once they got in, they just started.
Yeah, and that's a shame, and there's no excuse for that. It doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
But there are a lot of mixed messages. When people were out there burning buildings and hurting people, and they were called peaceful protests. And so the narrative is getting skewed. The areas are turning more and more gray. You're not getting a full understanding of what's really happening on the ground.
Well,
So I've had friends out there, and they're scratching their heads because they're seeing the media coverage, and it's alarming to them how they're missing the mark.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling it a Trump mob, but that's not really what happened.
I was listening to some of his talk, and I didn't see how he was goading them into marching.
If you look at his speech, he did say a peaceful, as we march over there peacefully.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything about entering a building. He didn't incite any type of riots. And so these are narratives that are being captured by his enemies on the left, and they're using it, and the media seems to be going along with that. I think it's unfortunate. I think the days of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill are gone, and now there really is this power struggle, and there's a visceral hatred for the president on the left, and from the media, and whatever reason, I don't think it's justified, and I think it's only going to hurt our country.
Well, I hope that it works out, that they find out more about who was leading these, and because these people with the costumes and everything, all they wanted to get their face in the thing.
Yeah, and some woman died.
Prosecute them too.
Some woman died, and she wasn't armed.
Right.
How did that happen? I mean, what was the
She was right by the, I don't know, if you saw one of them, it showed on the movie, they had somebody on YouTube, I guess they put it, it showed that she was on one side of the door, and there's a whole bunch of people trying to get into the door, and somebody just fired a shot and hit her right in the neck, and she bled to death.
And that's very unfortunate. And so the whole thing just escalated, and never should anybody able to march. When the new Supreme Court Justice, I forgot his name, but the people were pounding the doors back then, that was called a peaceful protest.
Right.
And they were storming and they were yelling during the hearings. I think it was Judge Kevin Avard. Mm-hmm. Well, that was okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, this escalated even more and more. But I think what happens is people are just going to be more and more prone to this, and it's just showing a decline in our country.
Well, I think they let it all go, and that's why I say they have to be held responsible and prosecuted.
I agree.
No more of this release and recognizance.
And find out who was responsible for it, and go from there.
Well, you got pictures of the guy sitting in the speaker's chair, and somebody stealing the flag out of the senator's office.
And you know what's troubling? The world is watching.
Yeah.
And it's not just our country that has just been insulted. It's not just our house. That's not anybody else's. That's our house. That belongs to the people.
Oh yeah, China's already made comments, and some of the Mideastern countries are also saying.
Yeah, and it's making the world nervous.
Right.
I don't see how Mr. Biden, I was listening to his speech, actually at your house, I was listening to his speech, and I was kind of, he's got this holier than thou, rather than bringing people together. He was coming across as he was reading his teleprompter, he wasn't convincing to me that he's engaged in this.
Yeah.
Either way,
Well, that
whether you like him or not, I think right now the people of America have got to remember: united we stand, divided we fall, and we've got to come together.
well, I think Pence did a good job in bringing them back together in that meeting and completing the meeting, and he'll be there representing the Republicans at the inauguration.
Yeah.
But we do have to make sure that all this, one thing too, we have to make sure that all the things that happened in the election that caused these questions,
Right.
whether they would have changed the election or not, have to be investigated.
I know you brought this point up a while ago in that it seems as though the courts can go around the legislature, which isn't how it's supposed to work. The legislature is supposed to be in charge of the voting laws, and they were circumvented, whether for COVID or whatever reason. It doesn't say that in our Constitution, but there needs to be stricter laws to say that you cannot circumvent the will of the people. The legislature,
Right.
not the executive branch, not the courts. The legislature is the voice of the people, and they set the laws, and that's why it is delegated to them
Right.
to set this course. So we have to address these issues, like you said, that we got to tighten it up so that you don't circumvent the will of the people by using the courts or lawsuits. That's not how this is supposed to go.
And I don't think people are appreciative of planning properly. You don't change it the day before the election or something like that, just because they happen to be something. If the machines break down, you either stay open as long as you can get until you get the machines fixed, or you somehow wait and see whether you can extend the voting period by having the legislators do.
You can always have an emergency meeting,
Right.
and bring it up. But again, and then of course, then you have to have the governor sign. So there's that equal branch of government. So this has to be addressed, and the will of the people cannot be circumvented by the other branches of government.
We've had these questions of valid ballots coming in and all that, going way back, as far as I remember, way back to when Kennedy was elected. They said that he got Chicago and Texas to have last-minute voting additions, if you want to call it that.
I didn't know that. No.
Even recently, you go back to the 2016, you go back to some of the Obama ones, you look Gore, and
we all know what a hanging Chad is, don't we? Right.
So we got to clear up this and get it. We can't just say, well, it wouldn't have made any difference in the outcome. It was illegal.
Yeah, and how would you know it? And how would you know it didn't if you didn't do an investigation? How can you come out with a statement like that unless you've actually made an investigation? Well, we don't need an investigation because it wouldn't have made a difference. Right. Well, how do you know? You've just contradicted yourself.
And here in New Hampshire, I think we've been pretty good. We have a good write-in process, and if there's any even small. Now we're looking into those things because several years ago, 10 years ago, we never had any big problem with false voting.
Right.
But even now, they understand that they have to go in and look at some of these little things that don't mean anything except something was done that was wrong.
Well, just in our recount, my recount, we had I gained 57 votes.
Yeah.
So did she. Oops. Well, that's 114 votes.
Yeah. So how do you do that? But they're looking into that now. They're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Exactly. So we still won by the same amount, but it's it causes you to scratch your head. And I know Gary Daniels, he gained votes. Executive Councilor Wheeler gained votes. There were some anomalies that must be addressed. But overall, everything.
Because if not, the people who are controlling the voting aren't going to be sharp enough to prevent these things from happening. Right.
Well, and I know that there are definitely people that are looking into this, and I know that legislators like Senator Gray and Senator Birdsell, they've actually are working on certain legislation, but we have to tighten it up so that
I think
this doesn't happen in New Hampshire.
You can't just mail voting things out there and hope that nobody does the wrong thing.
And if there is voter fraud, the people should be prosecuted to the fullest.
Well, let's get to some happier things.
Sure.
I hope. What's your legislation up there in the Senate now?
Well, we've got a lot of things pending right now. One of my bills has to do for specific for Nashua, and it has to do with our local power generator, and we have the capacity to generate up to 3 megawatts.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to allow the local towns, local cities, if they can generate their own electricity, that'll go towards the municipal side, the schools, so to drop the cost of energy. So the local towns can save some money. So the taxpayers can save some money with your local generation.
Is that maximum for the whole town, or is it for installation?
It's basically, it has to do with anything that is above 1 megawatt.
For what, though? Is it coming
like a hydro or
yeah, I
renewable
understand.
energy.
But if you had 6 hydros, could you have 6 times?
I believe once you get up to 5 megawatts, that's when the federal...
From all of it?
Right, yeah. You pretty much have an aggregate of up to 5 megawatts.
Okay,
anything above that, then you get into the FEC, so, or I believe
so you treat the town as an entity.
Correct.
And it's everything the town has.
Under its auspices, whether it's the schools, whether it's the cities, the lights, anything to do with the city government or management, that helps us lower our cost of energy to run the city.
What if a company put one in?
Well, we have a company in Nashua right now that already generates 1 megawatt.
Is that included in that city?
No, it's specifically for municipal.
Because Fideli's doing theirs too up in Merrimack with the big solar.
Yeah, they can do their own,
Okay.
but this has nothing to do with that. This is specific to municipal and local government. We walked it through for the governor, and we don't see any roadblocks. We're just hoping that nothing changes and that he will eventually sign it. This is a stepping stone, and it is a way for the local taxpayers to have a reduction in their cost of energy to run the city.
Okay.
So this is one way we can offer tax relief. We've got the ability to do it, so let's do it. And it's a long time coming. When my last term, when I was there, we were trying to do this, and we might have stepped out a little bit too far. So we've compromised quite a bit. But we want to at least open up the door for us to generate our own, for other towns to do the same, whether it's Franklin. Right. Franklin has their own hydro as well. They also have a potential...
This is just hydro?
No, renewable.
Okay,
yeah.
So,
and they have a place for a landfill where they can actually put up a solar. Right. So it allows them to generate their own electricity at a reduced cost. That helps everybody, and it's clean energy.
Yeah.
So let's do it. And so that's one of the bills. I also put in another bill for Nashua and for other towns that have tax caps. This one, obviously, Nashua has a spending cap. And what this bill does is it basically reinforces what the people voted on a long time ago through their local, aldermen. But it seems like when it went to court, it wasn't enforceable. So Alderman Moriarty sent me some language, and we're going to present that and hopefully get that passed so that we can enforce the spending cap. Right now, there's no will of our representatives or the alderman or the mayor or anybody else to stop the spending. So this is a way to at least reinforce the will of the people. So far we've had some good responses. We'll see, what the other senator from Nashua thinks about it. But so that's another one that we put in for Nashua. One of my bills that I love to see happen, I put in a study bill. If ever you've gone to Hampton Beach and you've walked the beach, it's beautiful. There's been upgrades everywhere you look. If you have any kind of physical disabilities or you're not able to say walk on the jetties because of the cracks and stuff like that, you're kind of restricted from enjoying that. If you want to fish off the jetty or if you want to walk at the end and just kind of enjoy the that portion of the beach. My study will look at the potential of putting in a pier. It's a state park. New Hampshire has a very small seacoast. Many states have jetties, and they also have piers. And I'm thinking, well, there are many people get hurt there at the pier, at the jetty. Why not consider putting a pier there so that seniors, the disability community can go out there, local fishermen can just fish off the pier. And again, it's a state park, so the entire state, if you're from New Hampshire, you can go there and just park and enjoy fishing off it or walking at the end of the pier. To me, it seems like a good upgrade. I know other senators and other people in the past want to shut down the jetty so nobody can go on it. It's another restriction. Why not open it up to let other people, enjoy it? So that's a study committee. We have, let's see, what's another bill that we put in? There is a bill that I did put in. It was misconstrued by OLS, but I think they got the language correct now. And it has to do with contractors. Right now, some of the contractors feel as though that they're discriminated against because they're not union. So this bill does not restrict unions from bidding on state contracts. It only allows non-unions to bid. And what is the benefit of that? Well, it just adds more competition. And competition lowers the costs. And if we can lower the cost of operating government or on contracts, or bring in some competition, keep the same quality, why not? And let's open the door for competition. That way, the more restrictions you have, the higher the cost of things go up. So
was the door closed for the
I wasn't very clear on that, but this is just enabling language so that you cannot be discriminated based upon the fact of there not being union. So, and it allows competition. It's just
I understand where you're coming from, but I didn't know they had a problem with getting into the bidding.
So I wasn't aware of that either, but the two associations, Building Contractors and the Association of Contractors, they're two different organizations.
Are asking for
they're asking for it.
I remember a lot of companies like that having problems way back in 2011 when we did a review of all the operations, and safety was penalizing a lot of the small contractors, non-union, because they did this, that, and the other thing, until we found out that they kept the penalty charges that for their violations, and that's how they had paid for half of their budget. They no longer do that, I don't think.
Right.
They shouldn't, unless somebody changed it along the way since then.
Well, those are some of the bills that we're putting in. We put in. They're just. I didn't put in a whole lot of bills this year because they're about 300. I know there is another study on music therapy. There's a music therapy licensing. I've always been sanguine about adding more licensure out there. But this will bring up the conversation, and maybe we can adjust it to where it doesn't have to be licensed, but that they'll be recognized as a potential way of serving people that need therapy. There's massage therapy, there's this kind of therapy, psychotherapy.
Some kind of recognition by the government that they are doing a decent job or something, or and an appropriate job. Right.
I've noticed that when I'm at the Capitol and I'm singing to the kids. And some of the kids, maybe with autism or something to that effect, they or some type of learning disability, they seem to not be part of the whole. And when we introduce music to it, they get involved, they get engaged, and they feel part of the group. And it's something that seems to unify. It draws people. It's a way of soothing people, getting them excited or encouraged. And so it's time that we start to recognize how that music can impact individuals.
And I think you were saying that one time that they need some kind of a legal recognition that the state okays that so that they can get reimbursed any kind of insurance. And part of that's part of the whole discussion. They can offer this, they can add it, and it's not quackery. It's been used for thousands of years, heading back to King David or Pharaoh. Music has always been something. You were there, huh?
Pardon?
You were there.
Well, I've read books. But you'll see that it is part of every culture.
Yeah.
And so if you dismiss it as a means of therapy, it does a disservice to those that maybe you can't reach any other way. And so we put that bill in. And so I'm excited about the energy bills. We have another one with aggregates, and we'll see how that can work. That's a little bit more complicated to get into with energy, but we're engaged in that. We're looking at ways to lower the costs. We're seeing rate hikes
That's
everywhere.
a big problem for the state. It's
It
one
always
of the
has been.
negatives, I guess you might say, for
Right. Well, and you have to start thinking outside the box,
Right.
and a little is better than none.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're trying to do, is just inch our way into, we want clean energy, we want lower costs for energy, and we want other sources. And so any way that we can adopt into this, I think it helps everybody. So we're working at it.
Where's your first session going to be? Are you going to do it in the Capitol or the?
Well, there are 3 rooms that we're going to be Zooming from.
Oh, okay.
One will be from the Senate chambers.
Right.
The other from room 103 in the House.
That's the bigger room.
And also, I believe, 103 and 100.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are the 2 downstairs on either side.
And they're big rooms
Yeah.
for Zooming.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that works, but there's enough room for us to be separated within the Senate chambers, and there'll be 5 of us per committee on the Senate side.
Yeah, but your hearings, it's going to be difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, they had some practice sessions today as far as how to run that, but they're working on it, and so people will be able to chime in. They'll be able to raise their hands, and they'll be let in. Do not be unruly, because once you're out, you're out. So, and what I mean by that is if somebody does something inappropriate,
Right.
You're gone, because there'll be a lot more people, I believe,
Yeah.
in line waiting to speak. And I think they might end up limiting, because of so many people per committee, per hearing. It'll probably be about 3.5 minutes per individual.
Better learn how to make your point.
Make your point. Be pithy and to the point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And so after a month or 2, maybe we get together again and talk a little bit more about what you accomplished, how you overcame your problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.